W.J.R.G. We are Connecticut's #1 gospel internet radio station on a beautiful Thursday evening. I want to welcome everybody that's enjoying our great music this evening and also this Action First broadcast. We are streaming live on Facebook. I'm Jerry Green along with Dr. Wayne McCray. Every Thursday we try to bring in someone who's a blessing to our community. And tonight we have the one and only, we have Miss Janet Brown Clayton. She's in the studio live and also streaming with us on Facebook. I want to welcome her. How you doing, my friend?
I'm blessed and highly
I
favored.
know you are. Always been blessed. All right, first of all, it's good to have you on Action First broadcast. It's our pleasure to have you with us this evening. So we're going to talk about your upbringing first of all. Let's get started with that. Are you the oldest of all your siblings? And if you are, you know, I know your mother, the legendary, I call her Mae Gibson Brown, and I remember your dad. So what was it like growing up as a sibling in the Brown household?
Well, so first of all, I'm going to say thank you for having me.
Okay.
And I am the oldest of the children, and it was a lot of responsibility, a lot of being charged with setting the standard and
Okay.
setting the pace for everybody else. And I grew up in a household where my parents were hands on.
Wow. Did you?
Yes,
Yep.
yes. And they didn't just say what they would do; they did it. And we were blessed that we came up the way we did because it saved us.
Right.
It literally saved us. Um, we grew up on I grew up on Ashman Street,
Okay.
265 Ashman Street,
Wow.
apartment 71.
Right in the project.
Yes, right in the
Right in the
project.
project.
Learned how to skate on a cement rink.
Okay.
Learned how to ride a bike on cement. All of that good stuff. And it sort of created I don't know if I want to say, well, it did create a community because even now, if I look at somebody, they look at me and we try to make a connection, first thing we say is Ashland Street.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's easy to make the connection.
Yeah, Ashland Street, back in the day.
Back in
the day. Now, Jenna, let's talk about your mom real fast. I mean, because I cannot leave her out. All right, Mae Gibson Brown, and I know your dad passed some years ago. Now, what kind of influence did she have on your life and your dad?
Oh, man. Okay, so my dad, first of all, my dad named me, and I biblically, when they name a child, it would say what they were going to do and what what their parents' hope was for them. And my father named me after the only two black teachers he ever knew.
Wow. Okay.
And so my name is Janet Felicia.
Wow.
I'm after the two black teachers he knew. And so my father, he stopped education at the 8th grade, but was the biggest proponent for education.
Okay.
My mom married my dad at 18, had all of us by the time she was 25, and then went to college.
Wow.
And my mother retired after 48 years as a teacher.
Okay.
So she was,
well. Okay.
yeah, she was a teacher. Retired in 1999
and now
from Branford.
They said the apple don't fall far from the tree. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
And no matter how much I tried not to do it, because I went into human services where I worked with adjudicated status offenders, and my dad got sick, and I had to come home from Georgia in 1982, and started substituting in 1982, and found out I liked it.
Wow. So that was a
and went back to school. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that as well. Also, now, how old were you when you started going to church? Because that's what you and I did at the Gospel Christian Center. And how did your dad and mom, like I asked about the influence, how old were you when you started going to church?
I have to be honest with you and say I don't ever remember not going to church.
Okay, so y'all was raised in church.
So we were raised in church. My dad used to work at Olin Winchester.
Right.
And our church was on Newhall Street.
Okay.
And so we would walk from the projects
okay.
to church. And my dad would time it so that his break, he could be at the window to see us. And he'd throw us out quarters and nickels and dimes so that we could go to the store and get something. Because, back then, a bag of chips cost a nickel and a can of soda
Yes,
cost a
wise
dime.
chips.
If you had the
The
quarter,
That's
wise,
right.
if you had the
the
quarter,
wise
you
potato
was
chips.
rich
That's
the quarter
right.
thing. Or a dollar,
So-
forget it. You was
And our allowance was 15 cents a week.
wow. Yeah, that was
And
good
so
money
we
back
could get
then.
Yeah.
you could get a bag of chips and a can of soda,
Mhm.
or you could get a bag full of penny candies.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because the penny candies were like 3 for a penny.
Mhm.
So, but I remember us walking to church. I remember us falling asleep on the benches. We had the hardwood floor at church, and when folks start stomping and the dust would rise.
Right.
Um, so I remember all of that from church.
And you had a good time. Now, Janet, also your family is very talented. All y'all can sing, all right? And we're gonna talk about your late brother Chucky as well. Now, what age were you when you realized you had the voice and you could sing? 'Cause I heard you sing now. I mean, you might not sing now. You said you had a little situation with your voice, but
Yeah.
how old were you when you realized that you could actually sing?
Well,
You started singing.
we didn't have choices about going to church. We had to go to church. And so we were junior ushers, we were put in the junior choir, and I found out I could sing when Rosetta Johnson Sherrod, who was the piano player at that time, made me sing a solo.
Wow.
And I didn't know, I was afraid that I was gonna mess up and all of that, and I was 9 years old. And I sang the lead and the song was Jesus Be a Fence Around Me.
Right.
Mm.
Now, so did that put a spark in you?
It
that
did.
built your confidence that I can sing?
And I gotta be honest with you,
Okay.
when I saw the people's reaction,
Okay. Yeah, right.
I was like, oh man. Because you're at 9 years old,
Yeah.
you don't understand anything about anointing or anything.
Right. You understand the people.
But yeah, you understand the people's reaction. And as a little kid, you like it when people are encouraging you or they like what you're doing,
Like I said, your family is very, very talented, and your mom's, like I said, now, was she the founder of Salt and Pepper?
Yes, my mom founded Salt and Pepper, she and Sheila Bonenberger
Okay.
back in 1985. My family, my mother was a teacher at the Whitewood School in Branford. And we went out there to sing because my family sang. So it was my 2 brothers and my sisters and I. And after we sang, Sheila asked my mom, do you think white people could sing black gospel music? And my mother said, well, I don't see why not. And so they came over to our house.
Okay.
And we sang songs and taught 3-part harmony. And that's how Salt and Pepper
That's how Salt
began.
and Pepper began.
Yeah.
Wow. Like I was telling Dr. Wayne, that choir was real big, especially back in the 90s and
Yes.
early 2000s. And it's still singing, right?
They're still singing, still traveling.
Salt and Pepper.
Yeah, we were on the NBC, Good Morning America, and then we were on NBC, and there was a documentary done about Salt and Pepper.
That's right.
And not just Good Time Sunday, was a documentary done.
Wow.
And Mom is still singing with the choir.
How old is your mom? How old?
Mom is 84.
84 years
84.
old.
Still driving, yes. Yes, it's still fresh.
Now I understand. I came to your brother's service of Lake Chucky. How devastating was that when you lost your brother Chucky? He was so talented. And he was the one that taught us Dr. Wayne at the Godly Choir, the Center of Our Joy. He's the lead singer that song. And I used to love when Brother Chucky used to sing that song. I was singing back in the background, and I said to myself, "Go ahead and let Chucky sing that song." How devastating was that when you lost your brother?
I can't even I can't even explain it because we were very close. I was the oldest. I am the oldest.
Right.
Chucky was the baby.
Okay.
And so the running joke in the family is that my mother birthed him, but he was my baby.
Wow.
Because I was 8 years older than him.
Wow.
And when he was born, my mom went to college. And so I had a lot to do with taking care of him. And then we were the only 2 that went to private school. And so we used to sit in the bed and speak French to each other.
Wow.
And so he had not been ill. And I was going down to spend Christmas with him because whenever I got a break from school, especially when it was so stressful, during COVID and coming out of COVID and all. I would just try to make it until I could get to his house,
Right.
and then all I wanted to do was get to the recliner in his living room.
Wow. Okay.
And he would bring me, I didn't have to move from that recliner. He would bring me food and everything else. And I went down for Christmas.
Wow.
And when I got off the train and he didn't meet me, I knew something was wrong.
Okay.
And we found him in his apartment.
Wow.
And he just went to sleep.
Yeah, he was a blessing, man.
Mm.
All right, so he was greatly loved. That was a great loss when I first heard that as well. All right, now also I remember Janet, your trial sermon in ministry at Agape Christian Center. Now, how long you been ministering now, and how has God blessed your ministry over the years?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, we're gonna talk about your retirement, but
yeah.
since I got you in the studio, we got a legend tonight.
You
in the
are
studio.
really going way
Right, like I
back,
said,
Jerry.
right. I mean, I got to go back
So
because you got a lot of history.
I did my initial sermon April 28, 1985.
Okay, yeah.
And it was Authority by Persuasion.
Okay.
Was this title that came from Acts, talking about Saul's conversion.
Okay.
Wow.
And I've been able to travel places I didn't think I'd travel and speak in front of audiences. And one of the things I really appreciate about God and the way he navigates things is that we black folk don't own the market or corner the market on salvation.
Okay, right.
And salvation and people that are saved and love the Lord come in all colors.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And so I've been able to minister at all different types of churches, different religions, different ethnic persuasions. And one of my most memorable times was speaking at a Lutheran church in Westport. And I was sick. I couldn't cancel because the service was going to start.
Right.
And I got to the church and I had to put on the robe, the cassock and everything, and walk in. And when they had communion, instead of the little individual things, you had the cup of wine, and somebody would drink it, they'd wipe it and turn. And so, saved, sanctified folk don't drink wine, right? So, but I know that when you're in the company of others, you do what the practice is.
Exactly.
He turned that cup and gave me that sip of wine, and at the moment that wine hit my stomach settled right there.
Right.
And it reminded me of the scripture that says, "A little wine for the stomach's sake."
Right.
It really, and I was able to minister. I was able to participate, and that was extremely memorable for me.
But that's what God knew that you needed.
Yeah.
Right, at that time.
Yes.
You said, Dr. Wayne?
Yeah, I just want to jump in a second because now I'm hearing some things, that, that's real kingdom work. When we can connect with other faiths and beliefs, because that's what heaven's going to look like. It's going to look like all of us. So, that's the way that we relate and build relations, of kingdom. It said, let thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So that's what we tap into when we're able to interact with other faiths and beliefs and still be a witness and a light unto them. But, I wanted to say something. When you were saying 265, it brought me back to my childhood. My cousins, the Dorseys, Merlene Dorsey.
I remember that.
Yeah, Merlene, my cousin Brian and Sheila and Dodie, the Rogers.
Yeah.
The Rogers family. Yeah. And all the cousins, the Smiths, Tiffany and Jimmy. But they was in another building.
They were in the back.
Yeah. But when you said 265, it just jogged some. Yeah. It brought back a lot of memories. The Kellys, the Kellys.
Oh yeah. And so even if you didn't live in the same building,
right?
You got to play with each other because there was the rink, the skating rink. They had two of them, but they were between all of the buildings.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, got a lot of history.
A lot of history.
That's
Yeah.
right. Let me just say this Action First broadcast on W.J.R.G Radio. I'm Jerry Green along with Dr. Wayne McCray, and we have our special guest this evening, Janet Brown Clayton, minister, and she was also a principal and assistant school superintendent of schools. So we're going to get into that. Also, Janet, I know you're really high on education. So let's talk about that again. And that's something we all need, education. So let's talk about your education and you was the principal at Lincoln Bassett School. Let's talk about that.
So I served as principal of Lincoln Bassett School from 2014 to 2017,
Okay.
and um, it was one of the best experiences of my professional career. And I say that because I call it a cataclysmic clash of opportunity, talent, desire, and funding.
Okay. There you go.
All of those came together. There was a talented group of educators there that were second to none. My leadership team, second to none, and every one of I'm very proud of them, and every one of the persons on the leadership team, with I think maybe the exception of one, they're now administrators.
Praise God.
And but we had a group of people who came together under one purpose, and that purpose was to shift the trajectory of that school and to shift the trajectory of the neighborhood. And well, when I say the neighborhood, I mean our presence in the neighborhood.
Right.
That we had to become a part of the neighborhood. Because my teaching staff was the antithesis of the student population. So our student population was majority black and brown.
Right.
And my teaching staff was not. And so we did a lot of work around courageous conversations about race and shifting how people look, and even and small things like the block where Lincoln Bassett is Butler, Shelton, Bassett, and I think was that Ivy or okay. And there's a walkthrough. You cut through the school between the parking lot and the building, and you can cut through and walk from one block to the other. And so I even talked to the staff about speaking to people in the morning. You know, and it got to the point where my staff would speak to people in the morning, and the community would see them and say, "Oh, you're doing something different today," and so they'd have conversations going into the building, and we built relationships. And so those relationships allowed us to shift trajectories because people trusted us. You know, when I first was appointed as principal at Lincoln Bassett, they had a meet the principal night, and they ordered 10 pizzas, and only 10 people showed up, and one of them was my mama. She was with me. But then by September, when we had our first meet the teacher night, we had over 150 people.
Wow.
And then we do things like alphabet soup night, because a lot of times teachers talk in jargon that other people don't understand. So we wanted to break it down so that the neighborhood could understand. And so we had alphabet soup night, where I made a big vat of soup and cornbread, and we explained all of the acronyms, you know, so that the parents would understand what we were talking about.
Right.
And then we'd have a build a gingerbread night, and we build a gingerbread house, and it became so wildly popular that we had to have 2 seatings.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah, and our children, and I am convinced, children will rise to the level of your expectations for them.
That's right.
Particularly when they know that you believe in them,
Right.
and that you give them a target to shoot for.
Right now, also, I understand. Reading your bio, you're very educated. Southern Connecticut State University, 6-year degree leadership, education leadership. Also, you have a Master of Science in Early Education, Lincoln University, Bachelor of Arts, Human Services, Delaware Technical and Community College, Human Services. Wow. School leadership experience, Highville Charter School in New Haven. So that's, I mean, what kept you motivated for the education? What was going on?
It's the children.
Okay, because a lot of people they're out there watching movies or the dudes and you do a lot of studying.
Well, I wanted, so school was important to me when I was
Okay.
young. And I went to the community school, Winchester Community School, right at Gregory Street. Gregory Street, I don't even know if that exists anymore.
Okay.
But I had all white teachers, but those teachers really cared about us.
Okay. Yeah.
And Miss Dr. Barry Herman was the principal. He would call us young ladies and young men, no matter how badly they acted or kids acted up.
Right.
We were always young ladies, young men. I had my first black teacher in third grade, and I wanted to be to the children of the community what those teachers were to me.
Word to you. Wow.
Yeah, it changed. It made me become the student that I was because I wanted to please them. They had high expectations
That's
for
right.
us.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. Now also you was assistant superintendent of schools in Bridgeport.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. That's I mean, you got a lot of great history. I mean, a lot of great accomplishments. Let's talk about being assistant superintendent of schools.
I was assistant superintendent of schools for Bridgeport from 2017 to 2019.
Okay.
Bridgeport has over um, 50 schools, and
It's a lot of schools.
it's a lot of schools, 21,000
Lot of
students,
responsibilities.
and so it was three assistant superintendents, and then it went down to two, and we had to share those responsibilities. So I was in charge of 20 schools, elementary, middle, and high, and I was in charge of the social workers, the school nurses, grievances for the union, community service, community engagement, girls who code, the contract negotiations for the union, yeah,
Wow.
and all of that. And it taught me a lot. Um, it taught me a lot about the bureaucracy of schools and what it takes to run schools. But it also still allowed me just enough time to stay involved with the students. And so I got to do things like Girls Who Code, and it let me be involved and have hands in with the students. And so the thing that kept me going for 40 years are the children. And I'll tell anybody, no matter how bad they are, children, you expect what you get from them.
Yeah.
It's the adults that'll blow your mind.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
The adults never cease to amaze me.
Parents, I know.
Well, not just parents,
Right,
but
just adults.
just adults.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, sometimes the children exhibited greater understanding and bandwidth of knowledge than the adults did.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and it's something, when you can unlock their minds, in areas where that they can excel in, because some of them are problematic, but then when you can get to them and they find out their niche, prime example, I did a program, soap art racing for the kids, and for years, it was gravity race, taught them basic engineering stuff. And so we would have our local race at Edgewood Park. Then we would take the winners to Akron, Ohio for a whole week-long event.
Okay.
And one of the kids, I'm proud of this kid. I always toot his horn. He never been outside of New Haven. And so he had that experience. And so this was his junior year. But when he came back for senior year, he decided he wanted to go to college outside of New Haven. And so after going, and he ended up going to the African American, and it was because of the soap ops. some basic engineering things that
They see light turn on,
yeah.
or when they, and it's scriptural too,
Right.
because just like the scripture says, Paul may water, Apollos
Right.
may water, no, Paul may plant, Apollos may water,
Well,
but it's God that gives
gives
the
the
increase.
Amen.
When you're in a school community, everybody is working towards the same goal,
Same goal. Right.
working towards the same goal. And that was one of the greatest things about my experiences at Lincoln Bassett and even at Highville, and that is when people come together around a centric theme to create something for our students. And I'm very proud of the people at Highville Charter School. Shout out to Mr. Shea Dawson, Executive Director. Shout out to Miss Ebony West, Director of Business Operations, Miss Maya Dry, Director of Human Services, Wathia Kelly, to Miss Shannon, Miss Smith, all of those persons that work so hard to make things work, particularly during the pandemic.
Wow. Yes. Yes.
It was a time in education when nobody knew what to do,
Right. Right.
and to be able to successfully navigate through and create a program that you're building as you're trying to drive it was just awesome.
All right, we're speaking live tonight with Minister Janet Brown. Clinton, I know you're retiring from the school system after 40 years. We're going to get into that. So, what keeps you motivated and encouraged to keep you going? What keeps you motivated?
The belief that as long as there is life, there's hope.
Okay, okay,
That what keeps me motivated is working with young people, and even in retirement. Retirement for me just means the difference between have to and choose to.
okay.
You know what I choose to do at this juncture in my experience. So, what keeps me motivated is being able to, at this point, stand outside and look and see where I could fit in, where the biggest need may be.
Right,
You know,
okay,
equity and access for our children
right.
so that they can excel. All of that is important.
Right now, Janet, now, is there any particular accomplishment in your historical, right, legacy you have here? Is there any particular accomplishment you're the most proud of? Is there anything that you really stand out with you that you say, I'm really proud of what I accomplished in this year?
I I I'm grateful to God. I'm very proud of the work that I've been able to do in education. Period.
Okay,
I taught at Sheridan for 10 years. For 10 years, I had the Sheridan Gospel Choir,
right,
and I used to take children all up and down the Eastern Seaboard, from Canada to Florida,
wow,
singing
that's
and
great.
connecting with college friends of mine, and that's how we put the kids up,
Wow,
and teaching them about the economics and the economy of working towards something and then seeing it to fruition. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the work at Lincoln Bassett. Very, very proud of the work at Lincoln Bassett. Very proud of the work at Highville Charter School. Um, I've just been blessed
that's right,
and favored to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living.
that's right. And walking in God's blessings every day.
Listen, listen.
And God provided the
Favor is
blessings.
something else.
Right, God provided the blessing, you walking in them.
That's it.
That's the
That's
key.
it.
That's the key.
That's it.
Now, what advice would you give a young kid, that might, encourage them with their education? What advice would you give them real fast? Someone that might be viewing us on Facebook and listening to the radio.
You can do anything you set your mind to and are willing to work towards. Set a goal that's specific, that you can measure, that you can achieve, and that's realistic. And then keep yourself on a timetable Those are smart goals
Okay.
to check yourself and give yourself accountability. Don't just set a goal and think that the same goal you set at 12 is going to be the same goal at 18.
Right. Okay.
You know, that your desires will change and the goals you have will need to be readdressed.
Okay. All right, then, now let's talk about this retirement. You're having a big retirement party, well deserved, right? 40 years of labor in the school system. Where's going to be at? Let's talk about the tickets that we're going to get tickets at, and how proud are you of that accomplishment, retiring?
So, well, first of all, I didn't want to have a retirement party.
Okay.
With some of my former students and my children and my family told me you have to. So my niece started working on it, and then I started getting excited. So retirement, and it's non-traditional.
Okay.
It's going to be a retirement brunch. It's Janet's Jazzy Jeans, where it's going to be on Saturday, September 17th from 10 to 2 at Amaranti's.
Okay.
Tickets are $70, but it's breakfast and it's breakfast and lunch, and we have good jazz music. And I didn't want it to be on a Friday night. People are tired coming in from work, or a Saturday night where people got to stop the middle of their day. I wanted it to be something where you could come dressed casually, and when you leave, you can already be dressed and do what you have to do for the rest of the day.
Okay.
So we're going to have some good music, good food, good fun, good fellowship, and yeah, have a good time.
All right. We have Jenna Brown Clayton live in the studio with Dr. Wayne McCray. I just got a couple more questions. I know I don't want to keep you all night. We can talk all night. But now, what advice has someone given you that helped make you the person you are today? And any particular advice someone has given you?
So I do have to say that my parents gave me a lot of good advice.
Okay.
And quite often, those of us that are parents know that we, the parents, are not the only people that hold your children's ear.
That's right.
So the best advice I got really wasn't advice, but it was a put down.
Okay. And it still motivated.
That motivated me. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
When I was 19 years old, I had this white college professor who was angry at me because I challenged what she said, and she told me I would never amount to anything.
Wow. Okay.
That you will, and this is exactly how she said it. You will never amount to anything. And anytime I got tired or I didn't feel like doing something, I would remember what she said, and it would motivate me to keep working. When opportunities came and I said, oh, or maybe I shouldn't do it, I would remember what that professor said, and I'd keep going. And opportunities and doors would open, and things that I, in and of myself, wouldn't necessarily think I could do. And because this person said to me, I will never amount to anything. Like my mama said, I didn't turn down nothing but my coat collar. And God has been faithful, and He's allowed me to experience successes. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it's good to see you. It's good to have you in the studio this evening. Like I said, Dr. Wayne, when I first got saved, man, I was finding myself, right? People like herself and Bishop William Moody and the late Pastor Matty Darden.
Yes.
I mean, all of them took me in, and helped develop me as a person, because I wasn't no singer. I mean, I tried to participate because I wanted to learn. I just wanted to be a part of it, right? And all of them were doing mentors to me, coming up. That's why I'm so proud of you. Now, I got to ask you this final question. I mean, how would you want your legacy to for people to remember you by? I mean, you've done a lot. You helped a lot of people, and we're all going to leave here one day. And to me, I just say personally about me, it's about legacy as well.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
Because legacy is very important, and that you can leave with your kids and just have a name. You don't want to have just any name. You want to have a name that people are going to respect, even when you're dead and gone, and you're gone for years, and they're still talking about you. How would you want people to remember Janet Brown Clayton?
That I was ferocious
Okay.
about protecting children, and their rights to learn and their rights to have access to anything that anybody else had. Especially our little black and brown children.
That's right.
That and people say this, Janet, you're not afraid to say anything. Well, my mother said a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And so I have to speak up for those who don't get a chance to speak or who don't have a voice because people don't listen to them.
Right.
And so I'll take on a battle with anybody about children and their rights and what they deserve.
So, now, Dwayne, do you have any words you want to say?
Well, just listening, you know, to her story and her impact.
That's right.
And it's a powerful thing when mantles are able to shift and to allow people to develop, to carry on the next generation. And that's what I heard tonight. And I could tell that there's a lot of wisdom and there's things that are still coming to pass through your due diligence and the charter course that you put people on. I was looking at the school. That it's a great thing. In a charter school, that's a different course.
And I didn't even get a chance to talk about that.
That's a different course.
There are children in a charter school, and they can have a sister or a brother in a traditional school, and they're not funded at the same things.
Right.
The children in the charter school get less money. We have to try to raise money. We can't even use state funding to pay for our facilities.
Wow.
So it's charter schools are schools of choices, and they're the same children that go to public school. And here's the thing: charter schools are public schools. They were created to give parents a choice, but never should that choice be at the risk of the fiscal support that their children should get.
Right.
So that's part of the the war to wage, so that children would be equitably funded. And the last thing I really would like to say is one of the things that keeps me motivated and that just blesses me is when I have adults now tell me, Miss Clayton, you might not remember, but you told me such and such and such and such. And I don't remember the conversation, but they tell me, Miss Clayton, you told me, and now I'm doing, or I have what I call grandchildren. I've been in education so long that I've had children, then I've had their children, now I'm having their grandchildren.
Wow.
So they're my great grandbabies,
Wow.
And
that's powerful.
It's a blessing to have. You were talking about a name and legacy. I'll never forget. I was at Brendan Rogers. I was assistant principal at Brendan Rogers, and this boy had cut up so bad. I suspended him. Told him, you can't come back till your mother comes back. And so he apparently went home and told the mother that I had done something. She came around that corner 38 hot till she came around the corner and looked at me. She said, Miss Clayton. I said, yes. She smacked that boy upside the head. She smacked him upside the head. I said, oh, baby, you can't do that in front of me. She told him in front of me, whatever she tells me, I believe, because I know what she did for me. Yeah. And if she ever says that you've done something again, it's going to be me and you.
Wow.
And that's an impression. See, and that's what's missing in the schools today. As you're saying it just put me in mind, because I said, now I'm sitting here with the female version of Dr. Beatty. When I went to Troop,
I remember Mr. Beatty.
Mr. Beatty, we call him Daddy Beatty. Because we all got that paddle. Boy, he come down the hall with that paddle. We all, and I appreciate him for some of them paddles today, and then I even got it when I got home back then. But you know, it just says, you know, the difference between, because the principal was more like a parent,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, and the kids have to have that respect.
Right.
And a lot of them, they don't have that respect.
But you're taking me on a whole different. So here, let me say this,
Mm.
and I'm really going to stop talking.
Mm.
There used to be a time, just like we were talking earlier,
Right.
when you would go to a job and stay.
Right.
Right. It used to be a time when teachers would go to a job and stay.
Mm.
But teachers have families too.
Right.
And you see the mobility of teachers is because they're trying to make some money.
Right.
If we pay teachers,
Come on, that's it.
what they were worth,
Yes, that's good right there. That's good.
then we would have longevity.
Yeah. Yeah.
We would have people who would be invested in the community,
Mm.
who would stay there long enough to build relationships,
Mm.
and you wouldn't have such turnover.
Mm.
I listen, I particularly with the pandemic, and this set me on edge, that everybody else is considered a front liner except teachers.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And teachers were, listen, teachers didn't magically become absolved of COVID. They have families too.
Right.
And at my school, at Highville Charter School, my teachers would come in the building every day and teach in the building while the students were at home, and they're at the building teaching on Zoom.
Mm.
And the only time they wouldn't come is if their children were sick,
Wow.
or they had to quarantine, and they were quarantining teaching from home.
Mm.
And you're gonna tell me they're not frontliners?
Yeah.
Come on.
They're frontliners.
That, you know, I say a lot of things has to be revisited. The legislation,
Yes.
you know, right at the Capitol, you know, that's very important now for what we're dealing with. It's not even about the Democrats
It's not.
or the
No,
Republicans. It's about humanity.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, one of the things I had just before the offices changed and Biden and Kamala took the seat. I was at the Capitol, in front of the Capitol, and I was preparing for my service for Sunday. This was on Saturday, but I was just doing a little spiel about, you know, the message.
Mhm.
And I'm standing in front of the Capitol, and I was talking about the scripture with Solomon, when the two women that had the
Baby.
child, right, and one of the child had died, or she rolled over on it and killed the baby. So then she went and took the other baby and was claiming it to be hers. And then Solomon used wisdom and said, split the baby in half and give both the mother's part of the child. And then the real mother said, no, let the child live. And, you know, she knew she rather the child to live. So he knew that
And
she
the other
was
one
the
said,
real,
no,
cut him in half.
Yeah.
Right. And so she knew that, you know, that mothering instinct. Solomon knew who the real mother was. And when I was referencing that at the time, this was just before Trump was coming out of office, but then Biden and Kamala Harris became, you know, elected. So the thing is, what God was showing me with that was the real mother has to nurture the child, which is the nation at this time that we're in. You know, it was that split, but it was about the Democrats and the Republicans. But now it's about humanity. It's about the nurturing. And we even seen, you know, I was really appalled when the incident, when there was a lack of formula for the babies. You know, how do we let our nation get to a point where that we can't even feed the babies? You know, yeah, that thing it turned. But the whole point. But then all this stuff took place after that. When I was down there, you know, referencing that, and then I was just looking at how with the times we are in, and it's about the nurturing and being nursed back. Our nation is in recovery right now.
Yes, we
So it's very important that even for our teachers that they should really do better. You know, yeah,
Because I'm
definitely.
being honest, I had great teachers.
They finding money for everything
I
else.
had great teachers.
You know,
And one of my teachers was Dr. Reginald Mayo.
Oh,
When I was in
Dr.
troop.
Mayo was
Yeah,
mine
Right.
too.
He was my science teacher, I think it was, or math, whatever it was. And
Science.
Science, okay. And I remember him because he didn't play either. I mean,
No.
he had us all in check, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
So,
he wanted us to excel.
right. He wanted to excel.
Yeah.
And he also had that fear too. Like, in other words, I mean, this is my class. Right. So all of us was in check. And those kind of teachers that we need today as well. But I do want to say, Jen, it's good to have you in the studio this evening for Action First broadcast.
Yeah, we have to have her back.
We gotta get you back.
Yeah.
Because somebody needs to hear this. I mean, we got to send a positive message to our young kids and to everybody. Anyway. But it's good to have you on the show.
It's good to be with you, Jim.
This evening, and also this
and you, Dr.
Facebook Live. So we're gonna let Wayne, Dr. Wayne, close us out this evening. All right, because like something that we always do. Right?
Yeah. Well, how we end the show. First, I want to thank you, and you just, I tell you, your value, your wisdom. There's a lot of people that can really glean, and I see that you have whatever God is leading you in. Keep the positive into the future,
right?
Because it's very important.
Happy retirement.
And happy retirement. Yes, indeed. Right. Yes, indeed. And enjoy yourself.
Right. I'm going to try. Yes, sir.
So we like to end by saying, I want to thank you for taking action first. And we just say action first. So can you say that with me?
Say
action first.
All right. I'm back to some more great gospel music on W.J.R.G, Connecticut's #1 gospel